and a very good morning from outside both King's Cross and St Pancras stations in London. Having just arrived at the former on a Grand Central service from up north, which I'll be releasing a review of soon, it's time to make the short walk across the road to the latter to catch my connecting train. Today, we'll be taking a ride on what is sort of Britain's fastest train. I'll go into why it's only sort of in a bit. Travelling from here to Dover Priory. We'll be utilising one of South Eastern's high-speed services for this, but first, let's take a look around this majestic station. Long-time viewers of the channel will most definitely be aware that this is one of my favourite stations, not just in the UK, but anywhere in the world. This absolutely stunning and now Grade 1 listed structure originally opened in 1868 and normally serves around 36 million passengers per year. The train shed to which we enter under is where you'll find Eurostar services to continental Europe. The check-in for these is just on the lower level. Up here, you'll also find the meeting place, which I think is a rather nice statue, and the statue of Sir John Betjeman, who helped save St Pancras from certain demolition in the 1960s by spearheading a movement to secure the structure's listed status. At the far end of the upper level, you'll also find domestic East Midlands Railway services to the Midlands and the North. On the lower level, in addition to all of the Eurostar facilities, there are also quite a number of shops and eateries, although unsurprisingly, quite a lot of these are geared towards foreign tourists and as such are pretty overpriced. Down the far end, we have plenty in the way of ticket buying facilities, as well as entry to the subsurface Thameslink platforms. For Thameslink, St Pancras is an intermediate stop, with their trains running towards Gatwick and the south coast in one direction, and Luton Airport and the likes of Bedford, Peterborough, Cambridge, and Luton itself northbound. Then we have the escalators up to the southeastern platforms. All of their services in and out of St Pancras are high speed, with their slower conventional services operating out of a few other stations across London. Again, I'll be covering the slower services in the coming weeks. Anyway, I think I've waffled on enough about St Pancras, so let's catch our ride to Dover. The service we'll be catching today is the 1207 to Ramsgate, although it's only advertised as going to Sandwich, as there is a quicker way of getting to Ramsgate than going via Dover, but I digress. All of South Eastern's high-speed services are operated by these dual-voltage Class 395 Javelin units. They're nicknamed Javelins as they were introduced for the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games, which were hosted here in London, with a lot of the units being named after some of the athletes who competed in the games. These units are part of Hitachi's A-Train AT300 family of trains, which is the same family of trains that the various varieties of the Class 800s belong to. These trains first entered service in 2009 and have a top operating speed of 140 miles an hour, or 225 kilometers an hour. As to why I said they're only sort of Britain's fastest trains, well, obviously the Eurostar services travel much faster, getting up to 186 miles an hour or 300 kilometers an hour on HS1. But it's only possible to take these to enter or leave the country. It's not possible to take them domestically within the UK. So South Eastern's high-speed services are the fastest trains that you can take while staying domestically within the country. And yes, I know that means the fastest train services in the UK are regional trains, which is definitely a bit strange, but whatever, I guess. When I filmed this a few days ago, the unit on the opposing platform here was all cordoned off, and it appeared that they were using it for filming something. If you happen to know what they were filming for, be sure to drop a comment. with our train here, let's get on board. Being a regional service, this train offers only standard class accommodation, with seating arranged in a 2+2 configuration. Each 6-car unit is able to accommodate up to 340 seated passengers, although at peak times you may find 2 units coupled together to form a 12-car train. Anyway, these seats are actually really good, and more akin to what you'd find on an intercity train as opposed to a regional train. They feature a generous amount of legroom, are really well shaped and offer a nice amount of padding, and even come equipped with plug sockets, and a surprisingly large and sturdy tray table, only tainted slightly by the fact that someone seems to have gotten the words tray table and bin muddled up. But yeah, really good and very comfy. I'd happily spend 6 hours or more in one of these seats, and needless to say, I'm very impressed. Anyway, we'll soon be setting off, so let's just take a quick look at the route we'll be taking today. We'll initially head southeast on High Speed 1, travelling via Stratford, Ebbsfleet and Ashford, before leaving the High Speed line for conventional network rail lines, and continuing via Folkestone, before finally arriving into Dover Priory. Scheduled travel time is 1 hour and 5 minutes, and will see us covering a distance of 77 miles or 124 kilometres. While we're on HS1, we'll travel at a pretty much flat out 140 miles an hour. And we depart bang on time at 12:07. After passing over the East Coast Main Line and travelling through the creatively named London Tunnel 1, we arrive at our first stop, Stratford International. Much like these stations we'll also stop at in Ebbsfleet and Ashford, despite the use of the word international, no Eurostar services actually stop at the station. However, unlike Ebbsfleet and Ashford, despite it being designed for regional Eurostar services to bypass St Pancras and continue on to other destinations within the UK, the first Eurostar service is yet to call at the station, with all international services currently running through fast.
Southeastern service to...
After travelling through the equally inspiring London Tunnel 2, we emerge into the daylight to find that we're very much out of London, and already travelling at pretty much top speed. We then pass the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge, which, along with 2 tunnels, forms the Dartford Crossing. It's the busiest road crossing in the country, carrying the A282 over and under the Thames, from Dartford on the far side in Kent, to Thurrock on our side in Essex, as well as being the only road crossing of the Thames east of Greater London. It is also the only point that splits the M25, with the London Orbital Motorway starting and ending either side of the crossing. A short time later, we arrive at our next calling point, Ebbsfleet International. Unlike Stratford International, Ebbsfleet International, along with Ashford International, did actually used to see regular Eurostar service until the beginning of the first lockdown in March 2020. While Eurostar does plan on resuming service to both stations, this won't come until at least 2025. Right, let's see what else these trains have to offer. In the front carriage, you'll find an accessible toilet, as well as spaces for wheelchair users. There are additional fold-out seats that can be used, should these spaces not be required. The rest of the coaches are all more or less the same, featuring a good mix of both table and airline-style seats, and decent provisions for storing luggage. Honestly, as I touched on earlier, this does feel more like an intercity train as opposed to a regional one, with perhaps the only clue that it's the latter being that the entry doors are not located in a separate vestibule sealed off from the saloon, but rather split the coaches into thirds. As for the toilets, while I was pleased to find that everything was working as intended, they were a bit on the grotty side, and in need of a bit of some TLC, as was the rest of the train, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, it's by no means the worst that I've ever encountered, not by a long shot. But these trains are definitely beginning to show their age just a bit, and train presentation does seem to be lacking just a tad, as there were quite a few noticeable surfaces that were a little on the dirty side. Anyway, as you'd expect though, these trains are Wi-Fi enabled, although, unlike the trains themselves, it's not very fast. I was, however, very impressed with the ride quality. To say we spent much of the trip travelling at 140 miles an hour, the experience was very smooth and more or less rattle-free. Around 20 minutes after Ebbsfleet, we arrive at Ashford International, which is our final stop on HS1. While we're stopped here, the train will change from operating on the 25 kilovolt AC supply of the overhead wires on HS1 to operating on the 750 volt DC supplied by an electrified third rail, which is the predominant method of electrification for train lines south of London. From here, we'll only be able to achieve speeds of up to 100 miles an hour or 160 kilometers an hour, which, while not just being the line speed, is also the Class 395's top speed when operating on conventional third rail lines. We then make a couple of stops in Folkestone, which historically was an important port town and one of the country's most prestigious seaside resorts. We then go on to run alongside the English Channel and the Strait of Dover, which is the narrowest point of the channel and the world's busiest shipping lane. I must say the water looks absolutely stunning as it glistens in the sun. Anyway, we're now approaching Dover, so it's time to whip out the chart and summarise. Honestly, as regional trains go, this is easily one of the comfiest experiences I've had to date. The seats are superb and the ride quality is very smooth. Honestly, I really can't ask any more from a regional train in this regard, earning the Javelins a well-deserved 10 out of 10 for comfort. In terms of occupancy, these HS1 services are kind of a bit infamous for their lack of use. Couple this with the fact that I travelled in the middle of the day when most people are at work, it's unsurprising that occupancy was very low. As for the amenities, there was again pretty much everything I could have wanted here. Plug sockets are always a must these days in my opinion. However, it would have been nice if there was perhaps an extra toilet somewhere, but as this service wasn't at all busy, this wasn't really an issue. However, what I do have an issue with is the condition of the toilets, and the overall cleanliness of the train itself. What good are all these nice amenities if they aren't at least given a wipe down between services? Sadly, due to this, I feel I can only award a fair rating in this regard. On the other hand though, punctuality was excellent. On the day that I travelled, all 17 services from St Pancras arrived into Dover Priory within 5 minutes of their scheduled arrival time, although you'd like to hope that this would be the case given that HS1 is running at nowhere near capacity. Which brings me nicely onto the cost. My one-way ticket cost me £9.75, including railcard discount of around a third. Without a railcard, this would have been £14.80. Honestly though, that's not bad at all for a trip from London to the south coast, especially considering that it's a high-speed service. Overall though, this is easily one of Britain's best regional trains. It'd just be nice if South Eastern took a little extra care when it came to train presentation. However, as always, these are just my opinions. So what did you make of South Eastern's high-speed services? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And we finally pull into Dover Priory on time at just after 1:10. Having bid our train fare, well, I've now got around an hour here until I catch my return service to London. However, that is a story for another day. In the meantime though, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, comment and subscribe to the channel, as all of them help me out immensely. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you get notified each and every time I upload. A special thanks as always goes to my fantastic patrons and channel members. If you want to join them in supporting my work while gaining ad-free access to my videos, then you can do so from just £1, dollar or euro per month. You'll find the relevant links for this in the description below. With that, all that's left for me to say is thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all next Friday.